Zach here from Gravel Bike California, back in the San Bernardino Mountains, as I'm here for Tour de Big Bear's Dirty Bear. A few years ago, we made a video up here that I liked so much it ended up being GBC's first Gravel Guide of the Year award winner. This is one of my favorite retreats around the Los Angeles area, not just to get away from the heat, but also with all the options for dining and recreation around. Now, the Tour de Big Bear is more than just an event, not just counting the road and gravel rides, but also a number of festivities that should make this a long weekend. Unfortunately, I had to drive up this morning, so I did it slow enough that hopefully elevation will not be a factor, right? Let's roll. This was definitely an exciting day you want to memorialize, seeing a number of people from the GBC community making it out from all stretches of Southern California. And clearly, Big Bear is heavily involved with this event, with festivities all around the weekend, like the poker ride, as well as the glow ride the evening before. The rolling was kicked off with the 100-mile road ride, with the Graveliers ready for our 50-mile Dirty Bear ride right after, as the route covers both sides of the lake with playful sectors of dirt on each. Our whole group loved biking here a few years ago for our gravel guide, and parts of our ride were also included in this course. But I always enjoy the discovery here in Big Bear, whether it be on dirt or the road. The mood was filled with a lot of energy and eagerness, rolling out in a deep field with a controlled start for the first 4 miles through the municipality of Big Bear Lake, including a number of supportive locals. And one thing you don't normally feel in a gravel ride is the circling of large numbers out there that still felt unencumbered even as we rumbled through a number of neighborhoods, thanks to this incredible amount of organization leading us through, as you could just focus on the riding and enjoy the company all around. It wasn't quite the parting of the waters, but it did feel like a moment crossing the east side of the lake, turning left onto Highway 38, where our pace car finally peeled off, meaning speeds were now trending in the upward direction, which was an efficient way of pounding out the miles. But the tone changed after mile 7, entering one of the more older regions in Fawnskin, where all the fun and games of flatness were about to end, with everyone lining up for our biggest climb of the day, aided initially by pavement, soon transitioning to dirt and unexplained bus positioning, as we were still on Rim of the World Drive, with traffic signs indicating more frequent usage than you'd think, and not just from our party at hand, having all settled into this 3.8 mile climb, averaging just 4.5%, though my main form of unease was trying to replicate the views of my rear camera after the mounting broke. Turning up Delamar Mountain Road indicated we were past the halfway point of the climb, but noting the side presence of camping, the accompaniment of roaming vehicles was no surprise, as the climb itself stayed away from settling on a consistent grade, keeping your gear shifting skills on alert, especially to take advantage on the flatter sections. And while it wasn't a bad time to refuel, it was also proper to enjoy the elevation we had gained. Reaching the highest point of the day was a double reward, which if you remember Kodak's would be one of those moments leading into 4.5 miles of descending, aware that the conditions were slightly loose, but not cognizant yet how my camera was doing me dirty, with more jubilation at the halfway downhill point. Hitting the first pit stop gave me mainland fever and plenty on hand to help cure what ails you, but unfortunately for me, no one caught these smudges, which only got worse with more kicking up dust. At least I figured it out in the better late than never category, finishing off Palique Canyon Road and making it back onto Highway 38 towards our next sector of dirt. We passed a number of riders starting the later rides, while we were blending in with some of the Centurions, as it was the closest I'd be to the lake for the rest of the ride. Choosing to skip the next aid station, it was another 1.5 miles to Van Dusen Canyon. That was my favorite climb in our gravel guide, and is pretty popular with the locals too, as it's 3.5 miles of dirt that's more of a consistent ascent than our previous. The beauty of Van Dusen comes from how it's set. Remembering that we're in the San Bernardino National Forest, with the trees a bit more scaled back from view. That allows everyone more of a panorama, thanks to Caribou Creek paralleling below. Not having to go into full grind mode helped, and it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal seeing the trees transition back into the foreground, with the passing vehicles behind a greater concern, and less as it flattens out towards the top. That also provides a sneak peek of my favorite landscape of the day, which you'll have to wait for the payoff, making a right at the T, entering into the majestic Holcomb Valley, retaining its beauty probably from before even the gold discovery days of 1860, where we now struck it rich on the views. Good thing Anton broke me out of my stupor to get me riding again, because there was still more story to tell about Holcomb Valley Road, with a little more climbing left to get us above 7,500 feet, while also crossing the halfway point of this ride, where the elevation wasn't just the kicker, having to factor in finding a proper line in the sand and dodging about the occasional tree root. But the biggest issue was revealed on the downhill. Thankful for my tire choice in 42s, as the rocks eventually dislodged my battery before filming the worst part that overmatched my hyper smooth when it flattened out, wishing that I had gotten more coverage coming out of the mountains, as there was a different type of beauty here, even with the Radford Fire area as a background, and another moment reaching the final peak here, getting a look at Baldwin Lake down south, concluding that I was playing with house money if this was our toughest segment of the day. Every pit stop had a theme, but maybe I was under a rock figuring this one out, as each were universally well stocked, but there was still business at hand with a bit more rockiness, and staying on alert for drivers from the UK, soon exiting out onto some sweet pavement, which was a universally shared opinion that Louisianan expat Kevin concurred, and it's moments like these that you don't want interrupted, but eventually are, merging onto Highway 18, then following Rob onto Baldwin Lake Road, rocking the best looking bike today. And while we were in the midst of catching up, our road bike friends whipped on by that I got caught up in to take advantage of that draft, feeling like I was getting a free ride home, even as I hung out at the back, and I attached myself for as long as I could until they pulled off for the next pit stop, wiggling our way through the side streets, leaving the Baldwin Lake area, and jumping onto Highway 38, which is now on the south side of the lake, that everyone soon pedaled off of, leading into a mild climb that seemed endless, but the adulation hinted at a payoff to come, turning behind Big Bear High School for almost 3 miles of single track that was directionally inspired by spaghetti, while somehow still being mostly a descent, which was another highlight of the day, not just continuing the trend of exceptional course marking, but injecting a different type of fun, properly timed. You could tell it was the end of the trail as I flocked into the last pit stop that maintained the same standard of helpfulness and again properly stocked for the last 9 miles. But the bonus was running into Robin, who helped add gravel to the Tour de Big Bear, as the last phase meandered us through the residential, with the theme being a lot more climbing, including turning off of Bernhard Lane that had some significant architecture to limit the off-roading, but was sure glad for the downhill injection in the middle, definitely adding to the fun factor, which I knew would only be short, knowing the transition to climbing would return, with all this ascending eventually leading us above Holcomb Valley, connecting to another shortcut named Klamath Road that I used as a back road on a prior trip, so I was aware of the steep pitches at the end. And with one more gravity challenge hoof taking us into our last sector of dirt, we started with a manageable climb, leading to ending the ride on a high note, with one more run that mimicked the nearby ski slopes, letting your brakes go with gravity taking its course and playfully sloshing from side to side on the appropriately named Sand Canyon, sad for this all to come to an end. Obviously, I was still riding home in a positive mindset, passing this impressive piece of recently planned infrastructure and being led back to HQ like royalty, floating upwards across the finish line with a triumphant tone gladfully earning these medals, as well as plenty of ways to replenish, joining in on the celebratory atmosphere with families reuniting with each other, hopefully resolving some of the motivational techniques out there, and getting a chance to catch up with friends. Just amazing me how much the community supports the Tour de Big Bear, closing off an amazing day on the bike. Well, starting out, this event is a big win because we've got so few events in Southern California, and yes, not a lot in summer, and to avoid the heat, that's 2 big points. At the same time, Tour de Big Bear stands on its own merits. I mean, it's a fantastic course, the volunteers are great, and the beauty. And really what you get out of it is how much you prepare. Yes, get on the wider tires just for those few tough sections, but otherwise, gravel bliss. Anyways, if you want to support us, go ahead and subscribe button or share this video. Or please go on to Patreon or to our shop so we can bring you more. And stay to dirt.